The following is a project of our nonprofit newsroom. Support Midcoast Morning and local community-centered journalism today by signing up to be a monthly sustaining donor at chly.ca/donate. It doesn't take much money to support local news.
Hello and welcome to Midcoast Morning. I'm Joe Pugh. The story of a 1985 anti-logging protest on Haida Gwaii is coming to Nanaimo for a special screening. The Stand from filmmaker Christopher Auchter draws from more than 100 hours of archival footage of the protest on Lyell Island, footage that was recorded while the events were still unfolding. The documentary premiered at the Vancouver International Film Festival in September and will be screening at the Vancouver Island Conference Centre this Sunday. CHLY and CVOX reporter Heather Watson spoke with the filmmaker behind The Stand ahead of this Sunday's screening.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today to discuss your latest film, The Stand. Can you please introduce yourself to us and share a little bit about your latest film?
Yeah, good morning. My name's Christopher Auchter, and my film is called The Stand, and it takes place in 1985 when the Haida took it upon themselves to stand up for the land that sustained them for over 14,000 years, and just said that's enough in terms of the logging. And but really, it was a stand in terms of a protection of our culture, because when the trees go and the land goes, so do we in terms of who we are as a people. So yeah, it was a big moment.
Yeah, wow. And the film, The Stand, will be making its Nanaimo premiere this weekend on Sunday. And so far, it has had a Vancouver premiere at the Vancouver International Film Festival and won the Northern Lights Audience Award and received special mention towards the juried Arbutus Award. Congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, both those felt so good. And I actually had my boys do a lot of swimming, and one of the moms came up to me and because I said, the film's playing at VIF, and she's like, maybe you'll win the audience award. And I smiled and just kind of, but in my head I was like, that would be nice, but yeah, right. And then it happened, so it's crazy. Anyways,
I understand as well that when the film premiered at VIF, there were elders at the screenings who were part of The Stand back in 85 and 86. What was it like to be able to share the journey with them?
Oh, yeah, I mean, that was something else, because, yeah, it just was. Like, I along the way, in terms of making the film, I would visit some individuals that were there and lived it, and I would talk to them. I didn't do any camera, on recorded interviews, but it's just sitting down and talking with them, and they'd tell me their stories. And it was great to do this because, one, I wanted to let them know that I'm working on it, but the stories they were telling me and the stories they were highlighting and the moments that they felt were really important, I was like, yes, that's in the film. So it was just a great way to kind of, I guess, I'm not sure, not the proper word, but validate, or just kind of, it made sure for myself that I was on the right track in terms of the story points that I was touching, because I had over 100 hours worth of video footage and audio that I had collected in order to tell this story. So it really was hard, and worked closely with my editor, Sarah Adar, and it was tricky in terms of being able to put this story, and fit it into a 90-minute film. Our first edit of the film was over 4 hours long, but to have them there at the screening was an incredible feeling, and to see that they were happy with the film and that that it touched them. And yeah, I've had Colin Richardson, just he called me and said, "Thank you for doing this," and I was like that. Those kind of things kind of knocked me back, and just yeah, it just feels so good.
Yeah, wow. And when you talk about that validation, and it sounds like almost affirmation that you chose those right moments, that must have been incredible, because how long did it take to go from those hundreds of hours of footage down to 4 hours, down to 90? That must have been such a long journey.
And thank you. Affirmation. That's the word I was looking for in my head. So thank you. Let's see. I think it took over a year, anyways, in terms of the editing. It was great. We had a great process in terms of making this film. I believe we were still in development of the film. My producer, CHLY she put in some editing time so I could get some editing time with Sarah, and we could start, because I was asking the questions, do we have enough footage and audio that we could tell the story and keep it in 1985 and not have to go to modern day interviews? Because even though those interviews are going to be so valuable and they're so important, I didn't want the sand or the fog of time, however you want to say it, kind of cloud kind of those moments on the road, because things change in our memory and stuff, right? And so I just wanted to keep it in the moment. So every time you hear something in the film, even if it's like an audio clip, it's from the people that lived it, and they don't even know what's going to happen the next day. Like those comments were made on that day when that particular thing happened, and we're hearing their thoughts and why they're there, all in the moment. So that I wanted this feeling of almost like a thriller. You don't know what's going to happen the next day. Are the police going to jump in and just really clamp down on everybody? Or, are things going to escalate between the loggers and the Haida? What's going to happen? I wanted this kind of to really grip the audience and pull them in and just want to know what's happening from moment to moment and not feel like, so-and-so already knows what's happening. Like I wanted even the characters in the film to not know what's going to happen next. So early on in the process of making the film, I wanted to try to answer this question: do we have enough to work with here, or do I have to go out and with a team and film and record new footage for the film? And so having this time at the very beginning of the process to see what we have, and that's where that 4-hour edit came from. And even though it was a lot, it was kind of a bit daunting. Okay, where do we go from here? We just slowly started chipping away and chipping away. And there were still hard things like, how are we going to end this? Like, when are we going to move out of the story? And how do we begin this? There was a long line of years of to get us to this moment where the Haida were on the road. So there were tricky things, but we just slowly, just like a totem pole, you just slowly chiseling away, and the definitions start coming out, and the film starts coming out.
That's a beautiful metaphor. I love that. Chipping away at it like a totem pole.
Oh, thank you.
So this, I understand this is your first feature-length film, but you've made a couple of short films before, and I'm curious, how was this experience different from previous projects that you've worked on and that you've created?
Yeah, there were some times where I was like, holy smokes, just because it's just so much bigger than a 17-minute film. Like, everything was at a much bigger level in terms of content and information, and being able to hold the audience's interest for that amount of time. It was just all magnified in terms of how much more I had to think about. And like every scene in the film has been thought of time and time again. Oh, is this too long? Is this too short? Why is it in there? Are we saying the same thing twice here? Giving the audience a little bit more information here and there, or this character's saying this, but it'd be great if it came from that character. So yeah, just every moment was just had to be curated and chosen, and to try to tell the story was just at a much bigger scale. And there were times I was like, oh geez, if I bit off more than I could chew. But I had like CHLY my longtime producer and person that's kind of believed in me for so long, and kind of given me these opportunities to direct my own films. I had her in my corner. I had Sarah Hadar. I had my Uncle Mike if I needed questions, or just other people in the community that like Arnie Bellis and Diane Brown and then Miles Richardson, who's in the film. Like, being able to talk Christopher Collison, being able to talk to them and get those stories again, as I said earlier, that again, it just kind of go, okay, I'm on the right track. And good thing this story was already well, I like through this footage, having all this footage, and then there was just after I started working on this, a book came out about this moment in time. So that was super helpful too, because they had like a timeline in the back. I kind of reference that. Oh, this is that day. This is that day. Anyways, it was a lot, but it was a beautiful challenge to be able to take on, and it was definitely a goal I've been reaching for a long time.
And I'm so curious as well, like, hearing you talking about this event that happened so long ago, and I'm curious where you got the inspiration to create this film and why now, nearly 40 years later.
Well, the inspiration came because my uncle and my aunt both lived it. Like they were down in Lyell Island making that stand for the Haida people, for our nation. So my uncle is Michael Nicolayakalanis, who's an artist and great inspiration of mine in terms of getting into the arts and wanting to become a great, gain my skills as a drawer, and told me my first Haida story growing up that kind of pulled me in. And then my Auntie CHLY, who's, I don't even know if I'd be in film without her. And she had some medical problems the second half of her life, and or more than that. When she was young, she started getting medical, but she had to move to Victoria, and she asked me for my grade 12 year, do you want to come with me? You might have some more opportunities at a bigger school and stuff like that. So I made the hard decision. I went with her, and then I got into Emily Carr after that, and I started my career in animation that turned into, The Mountain of Skana, and then that turned into Now Is the Time, and then a Ryan Reynolds short called Ryan Reynolds, I'm a Laureate, and then The Stand. But when I finished Now Is the Time, I was wondering, okay, what's next? What's going to be the next one? And I wanted a way to try to honor my uncle and my aunt for giving me all these things growing up and all this love and time. And I thought, wow, I don't know that much about Lyell Island. I knew they were down there, but what does it mean? What did Lyell Island mean? And so I thought, well, a better way to do it than to dive in, research, and possibly do a film. So I emailed my Uncle Mike, just let him know that I was thinking about wanting to tell this story through film. And he said, well, if you want to tell it, then I think you got to get a hold of Susan Underwood. So he sent me an email, an introduction email between Susan Underwood and myself. She invited me to come talk to her at her home. So my son and I went to talk to her. And Susan Underwood, her and another filmmaker called Donna Wilson, her name's Donna Wilson, went to Haida Gwaii to film, and they made a relationship with the Haida, and they stayed with them at Haida Camp, and they were able to film all these moments. So that's why we have all this footage. I have all this footage to be able to tell those stories because of Susan Underwood and Donna Wilson. And so I went to talk to Susan, and about 2 hours later, she walks into her house, and she brings out all these boxes and boxes of tapes that filled my car. And my son and I, we went and got a Subway and a sandwich, and just, enjoying this moment and this beginning of this big journey I knew I was going to be on now. And I started going through the tapes. The NFB digitized the 3/4-inch tapes, and then I started watching and just kind of immersing myself in all these moments, and it was amazing.
Midcoast Morning is made possible by the Community Radio Fund of Canada and generous listeners like you. Support and grow our nonprofit newsroom project today at chly.ca/donate with a monthly or one-time donation. With your support, we can expand Midcoast Morning from 2 to 3 original programs per week to cover local news, current affairs, and arts and culture.
The documentary The Stand tells the story of the 1985 anti-logging protest on Lyell Island in Haida Gwaii. It's screening this Sunday at the Vancouver Island Conference Centre in Nanaimo. which will be its second appearance on the festival circuit after premiering at the Vancouver International Film Festival. CHLY and CVOX reporter Heather Watson spoke with filmmaker Christopher Auchter.
I was lucky enough to preview the first 40 minutes of The Stand yesterday, and I just wanted to speak to, at the very beginning, you have this incredible quote from the Circle of Traditional Elders about language and culture not being lost, but about it being in the same places that your ancestors found it. Can you speak a little bit to that and to the significance of that sentiment?
Yeah, I love that quote as well. That book that I referenced is called Haida Gwaii, Upholding Haida Law at Lyell Island. And it's filled with individual stories kind of based on the people's experience that were there. And Miles Richardson had, in his section, he had this quote, and he says, like, I was lamenting about, we lost so much. And this elder kind of spoke up and said, all those things that we used to have, that we used to know, it's all found. It's all there waiting for us. We just have to remember to listen. And so I love this sentiment that, because I felt that before too, we lost so much, like we can't even speak my own language in terms of the Haida, and that's why I'm kind of on this journey of trying to tell some of our stories, because I'm trying to find for myself kind of what it is to be Haida, and just feel, I guess, just to feel more grounded and like I belong somewhere. So hearing that quote and just what it meant, I just thought it was so beautiful, and it encompasses what the Haida were fighting for. They're fighting for our culture, the survival of our culture, because if those areas where we found all our stories and our medicine and who we are, if that's gone, if that's wiped out, then we really are changed forever. And then we're really asking the questions, how do we move on from here? Because we can't even, it's where our ancestors found all those answers, those are gone now. And so there really is no going back. So that's kind of why that quote became so important, because, yeah.
Yeah, and you're speaking to how it connects to their stand and what was happening in that moment. But I also think that you do a beautiful job in the film of immediately connecting that quote in, because that's the first thing we see, and it's talking about an ability to listen. And then immediately we dive into this phenomenal sequence of sound design that really sets the scene for the whole piece. We're hearing the sounds of the forest, and we're hearing this building music, and then in comes the machinery, and we see a tree coming down, and we hear this machine like cutting into it. And it you also have this quote from the animated character that then becomes introduced of this vibrant, lush buzz of sound, and we're witnessing that happening. And I think that's such an emotional, potent piece of the film. Can you talk about that, about using the sound and the animation to interact with the story?
So the intro of the film, like after the quote, I wanted us to feel that there's something wrong and that there's something wrong in the forest. And even the animals, they're all reacting. The salmon, the bear, all the creatures are reacting. There's something off in there, and it wakes up the supernatural being, and she goes in to investigate, and she sees the destruction that's happening within the forest, and she gets upset, and it's almost like she's calling for the Haida people to come make a stand, to help her and to help the supernatural beings. And again, that goes back to the quote, and that when I was hearing some of the stories that people were, that, they couldn't necessarily include those in the film, but it was an instinct that the supernatural beings were there with the Haida, helping to give them strength to be on that road. And even though I couldn't have a whole bunch, I could have that one character in terms of Mouse Woman being there to represent the supernatural beings became important because she also represents what the Haida are fighting for. It's part of our culture. So, it became a way to help tell all of that in an opening scene that also helped hopefully pulls the audience in and go, okay, I'm here. Let's be brought on a journey.
In creating this story, because it's such a deeply moving and emotional history, what kind of emotions were you feeling making it, and how were you able to process those or capture those emotions in your work?
The moment that I think of right away when you're asking about those about emotions and stuff like that is I think about Ada, and I don't want to give much away of the film because I hope that people listening to us talk will want to go see it. So I don't want to give a lot away, but she gives a speech to the younger ones that are there, and for me, like, it just pulled at me when I was hearing one. They spoke so well, like the things that they were saying, like they just spoke with such clarity, and you would think that these lines were written for them, which is why, like, when I'm going through and doing this, like, I always think, like, these are people that are playing the roles of their lives and stuff like that. Like, if you think of it in film and keep it in there, it's like, it's just such a well-written script, and this was the greatest writer to write, and these are the greatest actors to act, but this is real life, and these are these are real people. They're not putting on a show. Like, these are real moments. It was a gift to be able to work with this footage to try to tell this story. So there was also felt like a lot of weight there too, like, don't screw this up. But I guess I never really felt that way either. Like, it just, like, I don't know, like, I didn't really feel like, oh geez, like, I'm gonna screw this up. It was a challenge, and it was a challenge I wanted to take on. They took this moment on, the people of 1985, the Haidas of 1985, and the non-Haidas. So I could take this on as well. I have a different challenge ahead of me. I have a challenge to now try to interpret what they have done, the accomplishments they have made, and make it a story that we can take in and watch, so that we know what they did and the courage and the steps that they took to be able to do what they did. Because there are so many scary moments that I don't know if I could have done that, what they did. But I can do this. I can make it a coherent story, and a story that people want to watch and will watch for the full 94 minutes, and now they know the story as well. And one of the most rewarding things that I was told, Arnie Bellis told me this, and Miles Richardson told me this, that now I'm a warrior too, and that felt so good to hear, like, after they saw the film. I still don't think that, I'm not a warrior like them, but a different kind, I guess. But it just felt good that they would, and generous, that they would kind of pull me into their circle, which is an amazing circle anyways. Yeah.
That's so special to that they can see that there is this other side to being a warrior, which is being able to spread that story and to share, that journey, that battle, whatever you want to call it, that happened, and that is being a warrior too. I think that's amazing. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just, agreeing with you. Like, yeah. I mean, I never thought of it in those terms, but when they said, when they generously told me that, it was unexpected, and I can't express how that felt, right? Just something weighted, kind of go, whoa, like it's like an armor that they put on you, and you go, holy smokes, like wasn't expecting that. Anyways, yeah, it was cool.
And that's yours now. You can carry that with you and be that. That's amazing.
Yeah.
I just want to go back really briefly to something you were saying about that people now can watch this story and understand the history. And I'm curious what else you want people to take away from watching The Stand.
I think it's encapsulated at the end of the film. If you watch the credits and take in the closing song that's with the credits, I think that says everything. It's just treat each other with love and caring. And so, yeah, if you go and watch the film, please take in the last song, call it Haida's Message. And, it's what I hope people carry away with them, having seen the film.
There you go. 4 p.m. on January the 5th. I believe that's Sunday at the Vancouver Island Conference Centre. People can come on down and see The Stand and hear the song for themselves and take that message away.
Filmmaker Christopher Auchter speaking with CHLY and CVOX reporter Heather Watson. Auchter's documentary, The Stand, is playing this Sunday at the Vancouver Island Conference Centre. It tells the story of the 1985 anti-logging protest on Lyell Island in Haida Gwaii. That's our show for the day. Thank you for joining me. I'm Joe Pugh, host and producer of Midcoast Morning. Jesse Woodward is our executive producer, and Arby Frew is our technical advisor. Special thanks to Heather Watson for her help with today's episode. You can sign up for CHLY's newsletter at chly.ca/subscribe for updates from our nonprofit newsroom. Our theme song is First One by local Nanaimo band Waste Management. If you have a story you'd like us to cover, email us at news@chly.ca. That's all for now. I'll talk to you on another Midcoast Morning.
Midcoast Morning would not be possible without the funding of the Community Radio Fund of Canada's Radio Meters program and listeners like you. Midcoast Morning is a project of CHLY's nonprofit newsroom. Support nonprofit journalism in Nanaimo and on the Sailor Sea today by becoming a monthly sustaining donor at $5 or more per month. Support the program at chly.ca/donate. Finally, this program acknowledges and gives thanks to the Nanaimo First Nation as we broadcast and podcast from their traditional territory. Thanks for listening.